Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Small Talk. This is my video for the series of lectures that I have been delivering or recording in the past about banking, currency, and finance and investing. I want to talk about Bitcoin today. I have been listening to lots of scholars. I have been listening to the scholars in the East and the West and Middle East and all those, and the local individuals like common man, everyday consumers, the retailers, and everybody has been of the opinion, or most of the people have been of the opinion, that Bitcoin is na'uz-billah haram, it is gambling, etc. I want to make something very clear to those. I may not have much in-depth knowledge of the religion, but when I look at the financial structure and when I look at the economic structure of this country and rather of the world, I have, I think, much better understanding of finance and banking and economic system than most of these scholars do. And when I compare that with the Quran and the Hadith, to me, their opinions seem wrong. Obviously, I'm not a mufti, I'm not going to sit here and issue a fatwa. But if you recall my very first video where I explained what currency is and what money is and what is the definition of money, we did talk about what makes a sound money. And the characteristics of sound money were, it was fungible, tangible, transferable, it retains value, and it's scarce, and it needs proof of work, right? Those were some of the characteristics that we talked about. If you look at Bitcoin, it fits all of those categories and then some. So it has the same characteristics as gold, but a little better. And I'll explain how. The number one characteristics of sound money is, and we also talked about the difference between fiat money or fiat currency and the sound money, and we talked about the evils of the fiat currency and why the fiat currency was created and how this whole system came into existence, right? So if you haven't watched those videos, please go to my channel, and there's a playlist under banking, currency, and finance. You can start watching from the very first video all the way to the series of videos, and then it will make sense to you. So back to the Bitcoin. Bitcoin has the characteristics of gold, and in every single religion in the history of mankind, gold has been the sound money. It has been used throughout the history of humanity as far as the trading is concerned, as far as the store of value is concerned. And the reason why it has always retained and stored its value, because it's scarce, it needs proof of work, it's hard to it's fungible, it's transferable, and it retains its value. So when initially when I found out about Bitcoin, of course that was in 2015, my brother came to me one day and he said, Baji, do you know anything about Bitcoin? I said, I've heard of it, but I honestly don't know what Bitcoin is. And then he said, well, a friend of mine, he invests in Bitcoin, and he said, maybe you should dig into it. And it's funny because he said, and I was like, I don't have the time to now dig and find out if it really exists. He literally thought that Bitcoin is some kind of asset which you dig from the ground, just like with, you need mining from the ground, just like gold. And I believed it because I didn't know anything about Bitcoin. And he said, well, there are lots of people who are getting very rich off of Bitcoin. And Bitcoin at the time was, I think, $300 or $400. And he said, well, it has gone up so high already because it started off with a fraction of a penny, and it has already gone up so much that I think we're a little too late. And I said, and I shrugged my shoulders and I said, yeah, we're probably too late. If it was a fraction of a penny, then yeah, if it's at $400, how much higher is it going to go? It wasn't until 2018 or 19 when I started looking into Bitcoin, and that too because everybody was talking about Bitcoin, and then COVID happened, and during COVID I started investing into the stock market, and then I started listening to Bitcoin. I was like, I need to look into Bitcoin. What is this thing? And then I realized that this mining is not like gold mining where you actually have to go and take the labors and mine it from the mountains. This is actually an electronic mining of a coin, which is a digital currency. And then I started in the characteristics of Bitcoin. I did lots of research on it. At first, it is very confusing, and I don't blame those scholars who and those common people who think that Bitcoin is somehow haram or is gambling because they don't understand it. And trust me when I say that, because I didn't understand it at first. So to me, it was a very risky asset. It was just dangerous. It was already very highly valued. And if I had got into Bitcoin at that point, there's a chance that I would lose all my money and it will go to zero, and my gamble will turn against me. And it actually did happen. It went from, I think at that in 2019, if I remember it correctly, I may be wrong, just double check the price of Bitcoin. It went from, I think, um, $3,000 or $6,000 to like very, it just crashed suddenly and it went down so much, and so many people lost their money. And then when this happens, because this was very new concept, people panic sell and then they lose their money. But then it picks back up and then people just bite themselves and are like, why did I sell this? So in my personal humble opinion, or my expert opinion, as far as the currency and finance is concerned, I think Bitcoin is the most Sharia compliant form of currency that has existed in the history of humanity. And I'll explain to you why. I know I will get lots of flashback on this, and lots of the religious people will say, I don't know what I'm talking about. But trust me, I do. I do know what I'm talking about. And if you compare this with gold, we all know the gold is sound money, gold is halal money, it's like the real money. So if you compare that with gold, it will make sense to you. So the first characteristics of gold is that it's scarce, right? Means we may have lots of reserves of gold, but it's hard to get this because it takes lots of hard work and labor and cost to distract that gold from the gold reserve. And if you look at the Bitcoin, it's also very scarce. There's only a limited amount of Bitcoin that's going to be mined until they're all done, and then after that there will be no Bitcoin. So ultimately, once all the Bitcoins have been mined, the existing coins that people hold, they're going to keep going up in price, and that's where it's going to. So that's where the second characteristics of the sound money comes in, that it is a store of value, which means, so I always give an example as far as the fiat currency is concerned and the gold is concerned. If you had 1 ounce of gold 20 years ago and the things that you bought with that, you can still buy the same stuff with that 1 ounce of gold and then some. Whereas if you had $100 100 years ago, it will only be worth $4 now, because with the inflation and everything, your fiat currency has lost 96% of its value in past 100 years. So that's the difference. Whereas gold has never lost its value. It has not only retained its value, but it has also gone up in value. So that's store of value. Similarly, Bitcoin, because there's a limited amount of Bitcoin that you can mine in the human lifetime, it is going to go up in value. And we have seen this, that yeah, it was volatile in the beginning. 20 years ago when it first came, it was very volatile, and then the volatility became less and less, and now it's volatile, but it's volatile towards upside, because more people have better understanding of Bitcoin now, and they realize that it's very scarce. It is store of value. Not only it retains this value, but it goes up in value, and more people are buying it. With Donald Trump taking over the office and his flexibility towards technology and cryptocurrency, he's making it legal. So many of the hedge funds and large investment institutions are adding Bitcoin into the portfolio, which is putting a buy pressure on this digital asset, and it's growing in value. The third character, so we got it's scarce. Number 2, it has store of value. Number 3, tangible. Is it tangible? What does tangible means? Mean you can exchange it for products and services. So it's more tangible than gold. Let's say you have 10 kilograms of gold and you want to transfer it from one person to the next or one country to the next. Try passing it through the airport and then see what happens to you. Whereas Bitcoin, with a click of a button, you can just transfer it from here to anywhere in the world and nobody can do anything about it. So it's tangible, means you can buy products and services not only at your local region, but across the globe. That's third characteristics. Number 4 is transferable from person to person. When we transfer money from our bank account to, I'm from Pakistan, so let's say I want to send money to Pakistan. It goes through sometimes 7 and up to 17 intermediary before it reaches the destination. And all those, anywhere from 7 to 17 intermediaries, get their cut of that transfer. Whereas if you have Bitcoin, since it's not centralized, you can take money from here and you can send it to your loved ones in Pakistan with zero commission and zero fees to pay to all these intermediaries which are helping you transfer that money. So you're sending your own money, but you're paying everybody else in the process before it gets to your loved ones, and you lose the value, the net worth of your money in that whole process. Whereas Bitcoin, you don't lose any net worth or any value of that money. So that's number 3. Number 4, fungible. Is it fungible? Fungible means if I have $1 and I exchange that with your $1, they're both of the same value, so both of us don't lose any money in the process. Similarly with gold, if I have 1 ounce of gold and you have 1 ounce of gold and they're both of the same clarity, and we exchange that, they'll be of the same value. Diamonds cannot be fungible because no one diamond is, no 2 diamonds are alike. They're both going to be different in clarity, cut, color, etc. So their value is always going to be different. So diamonds are not fungible, where gold is fungible, and so it is Bitcoin. If I hold 1 Bitcoin and I exchange that with your Bitcoin, it's going to be same $106,000. Whether I exchange yours with mine or mine with yours, doesn't matter. We'll both have $106,000 as of today if we exchange our Bitcoin today. So that's the 4th characteristics of sound money. Number 5, and is proof of work. So proof of work is, what is proof of work? Proof of work is, we talked about fiat currency. That fiat currency is printed, and it's not even really printed in this digital world. It's just a press of button, they add extra zeros, and boom, you have this many more millions or billions or trillions of dollars floating in the economy. There is no proof of work, there's no cost to it. Whereas gold, if you want to extract gold from the gold reserves, you obviously need laborers, you need to spend money, you need to use resources to extract that gold, to mine that gold from the gold reserves. And historically, we've seen that all the gold reserves that we have in the world, you only extract 1% of the entire reserve per year. That's how costly and how time consuming and how labor intense that process is. Bitcoin is the same way. It's not, you cannot create a Bitcoin with the click of a button. You need proof of work, which means somebody has to have the intellect to, it's not physical, but it's mental proof of work. It's mental labor. It's not physical resource, but it's your electronic resource that you're using, because you need very high speed internet and high capacity computers that you need to use to mine Bitcoin. You also need mental capacity to mine Bitcoins, and you need to, because that costs money to create 1 Bitcoin. So that does require proof of work, whereas fiat currency, no proof of work is required. And surprisingly, Federal Reserve creates new money when his balance sheet has $0 on it. So there's no value to it, Whereas Bitcoin is a real money. Yes, it's not physical, it's digital, but in this digital world, that's as real as it gets. So it does need proof of work. That's the other characteristics. And then I think we already talked about all of this. So with that being said, if you compare the characteristics of the sound money, Bitcoin matches exactly that. And the added benefits that Bitcoin has is that you can transfer it anywhere in the world without any problem. Bitcoin has been literally saving lives in Gaza. We all know that during this war between Palestine and Israel, the aid was being blocked from Palestinians, and there was trucks of loaded food which was going bad, but it wasn't allowed into Gaza Strip, and people were dying of hunger and malnutrition and lack of medicine. Whereas I know some people who have been transferring Bitcoin from peer to peer, and that's how locals in Gaza have been able to survive based on Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, if anything, fiat currency is an evil currency. Most of these wars are caused because of this cheap money that's widely available with a click of a button. And the fiat currency did start during Vietnam War, when they decided to print so much money to fund the war, and they didn't have enough gold to back the dollars. Um, and we have been in a state of war since then. It's just never ending. The US has been involving itself in the war because it could just go and print money to fund these wars. So fiat currency is evil, it's cold-blooded, it sheds blood, whereas Bitcoin is actually saving lives. And even if you had sound money, let's say dollars or gold, and you want to bring it through the airport, you will be stopped at the airport. You can only bring a certain amount of money from the airport. Like if you take more than $10,000 from your bank, you have to fill out a currency transaction report that goes to the government, and then the investigation starts. And if you're carrying so much cash with you at the airport, the chances are that you will not be able to go at the airport. They will just stop you right there. Similarly with gold, let's say you have 10 kilograms of gold that you're carrying on in your backpack. Good luck with that. You won't be, there's a process for all that wealth to be transferred from one place to the other. It's not like you can just sit on the computer and you can do it. Whereas Bitcoin is literally, I can sit here and I can transfer everything across the globe to my other accounts wherever I want to, or send to my friends, my loved ones. People can see it, but they can't control it. That's the beauty of it. So there's no intermediary. It's decentralized. It's not centralized. And if you haven't watched my video, please watch my video on centralized economy and centralized finances. And that will explain to you why the free markets and decentralized economy is very important and how that aligns with our faith. So that being said, if you compare that with the Islamic finance and Islamic definition of money, Bitcoin fits all the categories of Islamic finance and Islamic category of sound wealth or sound money. It has the same characteristics of gold, but it has added benefits on top of gold. So I don't understand why these muftis and scholars are considering it to be haram. And I was talking to somebody, and a person made a comment. They said, well, nobody should invest in Bitcoin because of the volatility in Bitcoin, and so many people have lost money. People lose money because they trade Bitcoin. People lose money because they panic sell. They don't understand that Bitcoin is to be used as store of value. In Islam, we're the people of downtime when we are struggling. So if and the true example of that is that whatever we do in this world, we're saving it for the hereafter, because that is going to be our downtime, when everything that we do in this world is going to be counted for towards our risk or reward at the end, depending on our deeds. We fast during the month of Ramadan because we control our nafs. We don't eat, we don't drink, we don't do extra curricular activities which we can do during otherwise, which are of course within the halal premises. Those are all prohibited, and that's to tame and train our nafs. So in the hereafter, those fasting months are counted for us to go to Jannah, inshallah. So we are Muslim, are the people of the downtime preference. So whatever, we're always saving for the downtime. And I mentioned in my previous video, the world economy is a ticking time bomb, especially the US economy is a ticking time bomb, and this financial system is a ticking time bomb. When it goes off, everyone is going to suffer, not only people living in the US, but also across the globe. So in order for us to be able to survive in those downtimes, we have to be prepared. And I'm not saying put all your wealth into Bitcoin, but everybody should have at least 1% of their wealth put into Bitcoin. And by the time all these muftis and scholars realize that Bitcoin is halal, it's going to be too late for my Muslim sisters and brothers, because historically it has been proven that everything that they initially said was haram. And I understand them why they do this. They do it because they don't understand certain new inventions that come into the market, and then the issue of fatwa that, oh, stay away from it, that just in case it was truly prohibited. And then by the time they explore it, they learn it, or maybe new scholars come. I know some young scholars who are coming into the market who have more education on financial system, economic system. They are more pro Bitcoin or pro cryptocurrency. which I don't guarantee all the other cryptocurrencies because most of them are stable coins, and stable coin is something very different from Bitcoin. Bitcoin has very different properties and characteristics than all the other cryptocurrencies. So I only vote for Bitcoin. And by the time our muftis and scholars will realize, or will have new younger scholars who will be more educated on the finances and economic system, it'll be too late for Muslims at that point. And that's why Muslims are always behind, because whenever new innovations and inventions take place, these muftis issue a fatwa that, oh, it's haram, stay away from it. And Muslims are always behind. So I just want my Muslim sisters and brothers to be on the same board, be strong, financially strong, economically strong, so we can have the politicians in our pocket, we can have media in our pocket. That's what Jewish people are doing. They're very small in number. How do they think they're controlling the world economy? Because they're very advanced. They have very open-minded scholars. Yes, they bend their religion, which you don't have to. If something is so black and white and is so clear in front of you, why do we have to listen to a mufti who, mean, I have utmost respect for him, and I know their intentions are right, but could it be they don't understand what it is? Absolutely, because Bitcoin is pretty complex monetary system. It's pretty complex digital asset which not that many people will understand. You need lots of research in order for you to get the hang of it. And then once you understand it, trust me, you will realize that you're already behind and you're already too late. But I don't want you to be even more late. I think everybody should have at least 1% of their wealth put into Bitcoin, because this is going to retain value. And when the system and economic system of the world collapse, which it is gonna collapse, whether it be next 5 years or 10 years, I don't know, but it's gonna collapse, then you are prepared and you're not behind everybody else like we have been in the past. So, and if being rich was haram, some people would say, well, why do we have to be so rich? Why do we have to be so greedy? It's not about the greed. If being rich and being wealthy was haram, then Allah would not have given us the law of inheritance in the Quran. The law of inheritance tells us exactly how to divide our inheritance that our ancestors leave for us and after their passing. If there was no wealth saved up, then there will not be any inheritance law in the Quran. So that's a proof right there that having money, saving money, leaving it for your loved ones, and securing their future is absolutely according to the Islamic teachings. Were some of the companions of the Prophet not very rich? Absolutely. I mean, if you look at their history, even the Prophet himself, when he had money, he had lots of money, and when he used it all, he didn't cry about it. So when we say don't be the slave to money, that doesn't mean don't earn money or don't save money. That means earn money, save money, but if it's all gone, don't die for it. That's what it means, that don't chase money, because it comes from Allah, it goes back to Allah. If He wants to put us in that financial crisis, say Alhamdulillah all the time. But that doesn't mean you can't be rich. That doesn't mean you cannot save money. If you look at the history, Prophet peace be upon him, I was reading a hadith. The Prophet peace be upon him slaughtered 90 camels on Qurbani. Because one of them was for himself, the rest for his ummah. Try sacrificing 90 camels now. तो लग पता जाएगा आपको. No matter how rich you are, that shows how wealthy the Prophet was and how wealthy his companions were. If you they're sacrificing 200 goats, they're donating orchards of dates, they're donating their gardens, they're donating their wells. That was the main source of water, and water was very scarce and expensive. So it's like they had full control over these resources and they're donating them. That doesn't mean they donated everything. That means that was just a very small fraction of their wealth that they were donating. If you read Usman Ghani, you know how wealthy he was. If you even read the Prophet of Saad bin Abi Waqas, you read well, Abu Zar Ghafari was a very poor and humble companion of the Prophet. I mean, Prophet, peace be upon him himself, sacrificing 90 camel, 200 goats, giving all their wealth in to fight the battles. All these things because shows that our companions, our Prophet, were very rich and they had the money and they saved the money, and Allah gave us the law of inheritance in the Quran. So we have to be strong, we have to be rich, because when you are financially and economically strong, people respect you, the world will respect you. And Allah always says that whatever time you're living in, do things according to that time. This is just the meaning of the hadith. I don't have the exact words of hadith. It means whatever time you're living in, whatever works, of course, within the premises of halal um, uh, boundaries, you have to make those decisions. And Bitcoin is halal. So please, my Muslim friends, sisters, and brothers, go buy Bitcoin if you have the money. I'm not saying put all your money into Bitcoin, but put some money into Bitcoin, so when the down time comes, you are prepared for it, and you're not facing the crisis, or your generations to come are not facing the crisis, and they're not behind from the rest of the world, and then they will curse you, and they will be, you know, saying like, why did our parents do this? And by the time, trust me, all these muftis and scholars will agree that yes, Bitcoin is halal. So I want you to, I just wanted to educate you so you're prepared before your muftis and scholars get you prepared, because by then it will be too late. We're already late, but I don't want you to be even more late after that. So please give your video, please give your comments in the comment section below. Please let me know if you still think Bitcoin is haram. I understand that, because it's hard to change the mentality of the people when these muftis and scholars have brainwashed you all your lives. And then people are going to say, well, what authenticity or what ijaza or permission do you have to talk about your religion? I don't have permission to talk about my religion. I don't have ijaza. I don't have a degree from a religious institution, but I do read Quran, I do read Hadith, and I understand finances and I understand economics. All these muftis who give fatwas, I feel sorry for them, because I know their intentions are right, but the problem is when they're issuing fatwa, nobody is sitting with them who is well educated and well aware of the financial system and economic system, who can educate the muftis first and explain to them, and then tell them to issue a fatwa, so they can make an educated fatwa versus just an uneducated fatwa.